the very best home selling tips, guys, what we learned from helping 140 families move last year.
And I mean, like,
how we doing?
Fantastic.
I hope well. And if afternoon or evening, depending on where you find our show this week and whether you pick us up on YouTube over at youtube.com/Go St. George TV, or whether you find us live on Facebook right now, somewhere in the world, listening, of course. By the way, you can, if you want to listen to this on the radio, you can just Google very simply KDXU Radio, and you can listen live right now. You don't have to be, pinned to your Facebook feed, or even guys, your radio in your car. So if you're driving right now and you're on Bluff Street or wherever, hop on over to KDXU Radio on your mobile device or on your PC at the office. Tell your boss or employer that you're listening to something really important that's going to shape your life, which is the St. George Real Estate Morning Drive. Jesse, 140 moves last year.
Yep. We did.
Talk to me about that, man.
Well, I think last year...
Is that a lot of moving? Is that a lot of people?
It is. It is a lot of people. And it's a lot of emotions.
Yeah. Oh, it's an insane amount of emotion. Guys, there will be nothing more emotional than you moving, right? And we're going to talk about the best home selling tips that really we learned in this process. And there are 6 key items today. We're going to be talking to you about the disparity between what buyers and sellers want to pay and want to get for their home.
Yeah.
About how transactions fall apart, about the emotions that are involved in making a move, about the little details. And we're even going to walk you through what we call the Valley of Despair, the emotional stages of change.
And what's funny is
right?
Every one of us go through that. The emotional.
You bet.
Roller coasters.
You bet we do, guys. And if you're picking us out on Facebook Live right now, or if you're catching our show on another episode, you'll see I've got a lovely Zoom background. That is downtown St. George. You might know it very well. I'm actually in Lost Wages, Nevada, which is what my father called it growing up. And I am looking at Allegiant Stadium out my window. There are no Raiders games today that I can tell, or anything else going on over there. I'm down here for a 3-day marketing intensive, learning about real estate marketing, upping my game, becoming more effective for the people we work with. And that, of course, are buyers and sellers and team members. Our show is brought to you by our friends at Guild Mortgage. Love these guys. Chantry Abbott. Chantry is going to be on the first Thursday of every month with us. He shared a market update yesterday, Jesse.
Yeah, I went and looked at it
phenomenal.
Yeah, I went and looked at it this morning. It was really good.
Yeah, so if you guys want to take a look at that, by the way, you can just message us on any platform that you like, and we'll share that market update with you. Pretty darn cool. And it's a market. I called it a real estate update for real people, and it's 6 slides, and that's it. So thank you to Chantry Abbott, Guild Mortgage, and Jesse. Let's launch into it. Okay. So 140 families we helped last year move, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think about 80 of those folks, we helped them sell a home, and roughly 60, we helped them buy a home. And in some cases, it was a buy and sell together, correct?
Right. Yep.
When you look back on 2024, and gosh, we've already helped clients in 2025, right? When you look at this, I want to know, just off the top of your head, what is the most heightened emotional moment that you may have heard of for clients in our ecosystem last year?
The most emotional one that I heard of was the one that we had a guy or a gal, I can't remember what it was, that was selling a home, and they didn't slow down and really look at the details. And
Sure.
And it got to the end, and there was some details missed on who was paying what that were really clear and spelled out, but they didn't slow down enough to look at it. And so they were really like over the top upset about it.
Yeah. Guys, this thing can get away from you so big time. And one of the things I want to stress, Jesse, that we didn't even list in our, and this is a bonus. There's 6 items we're going to run over today. 6 lessons we learned helping 140 families move last year. But there's a bonus 7th. And I'm going to give the bonus first. And if you're with us, I want you to stay through the entirety of the show, because this valley of despair is phenomenal. But the bonus is that real estate agents are really famous for going online and marketing their exploits, right? Hey, we did this and we did that. We sold 8 homes this month.
Yeah.
But the reality is that when we look at great stories, there's always a hero and there's a villain and there's also a guide.
Mm-hmm.
Realtors need to understand that we're not the hero, we're the guide.
Right.
The hero is the buyer or seller,
mm-hmm.
right, in the story. So the bonus item I'm going to give you in our lessons from helping 140 families move, the bonus item is that it is so important that you have a trustworthy guide, because emotions are going to flare. It's like, I promise you, as sure as the sun rises, I'm looking at it right now in the east and it sets in the west, I promise you, you're
mm-hmm.
going to have an emotional time. And I'm going to guess, Jesse, that 1 in 10 transactions is free of any major drive.
yeah. Maybe 1 out of, I think that's correct. The
Sure.
other 9 will have some sort of emotions, whether you're buying or selling.
Yeah. And so, Jesse, let's get right down into it. All right. Lesson number 1. Every seller wants to get a little more than market value, and every buyer wants to pay just a little less.
Mm-hmm.
Is this accurate?
Yes. It's very accurate.
We looked at a disparity last week. This is National Association of Realtors data, said that there was about typical buyer and seller, what buyers expect to pay in 2025 and sellers expect to get in 2025. It's like $30,000 gap.
It was a pretty good size gap.
Worse. It was even worse for first-time home buyers. It was $80,000. Is this right?
Yep.
Yeah. And this is fascinating because, I share my screen right now. If you're watching us, I look here. Let's just look at some of the transactions that have closed. Okay. Dameron Valley, Cedar City, downtown St. George, Washington Fields, Ivans. By the way, that's just this is so far in the month of January. Hurricane, Little Valley, The Ledges, Desert Color, Green Valley area.
Mm-hmm.
What about Arrowhead Lane in Ivans, Bella Soul Drive in Santa Clara, Black Canyon Avenue, Washington, Morby Street in Green Springs.
Mm-hmm.
I'll wrap up. Diagonal Street, Riverside Drive. In all of these cases, Jesse, in every one of these cases, would it be accurate to say that seller wanted a little more than market value and buyer wanted to pay a little less in every one of these homes?
Yeah, absolutely. In every scenario, that's the case.
Correct. In every single scenario. How do we manage it? How do you, as a seller, if you're getting ready to put your home on the market, how do you manage this psychologically?
So I have a little bit different philosophy. As you know, I talk about whoever's emotional in the transaction will lose. So,
most emotional,
right? Right. So if the seller truly wants the most money, the question shouldn't be at what price, like we're not stretching the price. The question should be, what do I need to do to make sure that when buyers come into my home, they get emotional?
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, good emotional.
Good emotional. Like, wow, this is awesome. Oh my gosh, this is great. Wow, this is a great value.
Yeah.
If they're here, and here's the other side of that. If they're walking through your home with their check register trying to justify the price, you're the emotional one as the seller. But if they're walking through going, wow, this is awesome. Wow, they did a great job here. They did a great job here. Wow, they did a good job pricing this home. Now they're the emotional ones. And in that state, the buyer will always pay more money for the house.
And I'm going to give an additional tip on this, Jesse. If I flip the script, I'm going to remember as a buyer that the seller has a lot of emotion tied up in their home.
They do.
They probably raised a family. Maybe they ended a family. Maybe there was a divorce. Maybe there was a death. And when I keep that in mind as a buyer, I'm able to stay out of a position of offense,
Mm-hmm.
of too much emotion if the seller comes back and says, we just reduced the price, we want full price, right? And for the seller, I want you to remember that the buyer is scraping together all of the coins from their couch to try and stretch always a little bit more than they probably should for that move up.
Yeah. So
Number two, yeah. Number two. Okay. So
yeah,
that
I'll
was
come
number
back
one.
to what I
Number
was going
two,
to say.
transactions can fall apart over the smallest things. How small thing, Jesse?
Jeez, a hole in the wall, a refrigerator, a washer and dryer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I say a hole in the wall, the seller during the walkthrough hasn't gone through and patched all the little nail holes in the wall.
Yeah.
That can throw a buy, especially in a market like we're in, where buyers are already feeling emotional, already feeling like they're paying too much, can really throw a corkscrew in the transaction.
Yeah. And Jesse, I'm going to add something to this. We had a transaction recently where we were representing one party, and the other party said, you know what? Our client decided that the transaction, that it was actually a buyer, that the transaction was not for them. And they very legally removed themselves from the contract. There is a cancellation window in the state of Utah. It's very buyer friendly.
Very. Yep.
And what ensued is the seller tried to sue them to force them to close. And $10,000 was on the line of earnest money. And it was interesting. This comes back to having a guide, right? I'm going to tell you that buyers can get cold feet for lots of reasons. They can not like the way that the sun hits the back window.
Yep.
Or the way that they put the home under contract. They go back a week later to do a home inspection. They come back 2 days later and they said, can we look at it at night? And they go walking through the house. And while they're standing there, they start realizing that the headlights of cars are coming in the master window at nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
They're out. Well, unfortunately, we had to seek legal counsel for our client. Our client had to seek legal counsel. Unfortunately, we won. And this comes down to understanding the contract. And guys, a deal can fall apart over a scuff on a wall. Number three, the emotional side is just as important as the practical side. And I want to lead this one. We work with a lot of downsizers and empty nesters, and we watch them go through the emotional and mental gymnastics of, I spent 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years either in the home or building my family or married to this spouse that passed away. How am I going to compress it all? Now they're going to go through all of their memories. Do my kids want my stuff? Hey, my kids are acting like they don't want my stuff. I'm kind of hurt because the adult kids don't want most of the stuff.
A lot of stuff.
Moving is more emotional than it is practical for most people. Yes, Jesse?
Yep. Very emotional.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and if you talking about flipping the script, if you reverse that to say a move up buyer, I was chatting with one of my downsizer clients, Diane. Amazing. I went over and we had this really beautiful interaction, Ovation assisted living, where she had moved. And I moved her from Sun River, and this was the big downsize. And she had lived with her husband, who had passed away probably 4 years ago, in this home in Sun River, and loved it. And they had moved here from the East Coast, and there were so many memories. And then he passed, and then there was all of that, right? And then it was time to compress all these things into a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And when we sat in the apartment after her move, she said, Jeremy, young families, when they buy a home, it's exciting. It's like starting a life. And for a lot of us downsizers, it's the precursor to ending our life.
I was going to say the ending of the life.
I was like, oh, Diane, that was a one-liner. I wrote it down,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the emotional side is just as important as the practical side. Number 4, Jesse, details matter more than you think. I don't know. What do you think? Do they?
I think they do. More? I think they do. And all you have to do is put, especially for a seller, is put yourself into a buyer brain. Try and step out of the emotional part of your house and walk through it. What would you want to see to be the absolute best value on the market?
Yeah.
because, it's easy to say, well, hey, I have a busy life. I live here. They're just going to have to deal with it. I'm not doing that. But the littlest things, the tiniest little things can make such a big difference.
Jesse, I was on the phone yesterday with a client of ours. We're prepping her home to sell in Stonebridge, Stonebrook area. And she is older and she's, concerned about a lot of things, like as she should be. But what happened was when we met, I said, look, we're just going to use the name, Jane to be neutral. So Jane, good, better, best. Good is we deep clean the home and we handle some minor repairs to avoid a complete black hole for a buyer when they come in with a home inspector. That's good. Better is we remove the wallpaper borders around the house and we potentially just repaint the home. Best is we remove the borders, we repaint, we replace all the carpet in the master bathroom. Well, every seller has to make a decision. Her decision was have to go good, not better and best based on finances. Well, when I got her handyman in there, Henry, he said, I looked around the house and there are like 4 different colors of light switch and outlet plates. And it looks crazy because once all the furniture was removed and it's empty.
Yeah.
He said, should we replace them? And I said, yes. $300, labor and cost. Well, why? Because here's what we're trying to do. Well, Jeremy, someone's just going to replace the carpet and paint it. I'm going to let them choose their own colors. I get it. We're trying to smooth out the edges for a buyer, including like painting a front door or restaining a front door and cleaning your light switches so they don't have your kids' fingerprints all over them. We want to smooth out the edges to make this just a really easy choice.
So here, I want to describe what happens to a buyer if you don't do that. So what happens is they walk in the house and they flip the switch and they look at the one that's eggshell. And then they're walking through the house and they might see the plug down there that's cracked. And then they go over here and they see the perfectly white one. In their mind, they're adding it up in their mind of all of the stuff that you didn't take care of as the homeowner. And they're adding it up in their mind how much it's going to cost them to make it a very nice, loving, comfortable home. And those little things, even though they're not a big deal, and once we live there, we don't notice them. When you're looking, it's like going to look at a new car and it's got a scratch on the door. Stands out like a sore thumb. But when it's our car, we don't always see it.
Well, Jesse, classic. Jen was looking at cars. She'd been in an accident 3 months ago and has been looking car shopping for like 2 months. Goes and drives this fantastic car, actually in northern Utah area. Gets done with the test drive and she laughed and she said, I cannot shake. She said, I know this is crazy because she's, by the way, speaking of car shopping, she's looking to spend like 20 to 25, like very used cars. Like right now, it's not a decision to buy a $50,000 car the way that people do now. He said, I cannot shake the steering wheel. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, the steering wheel is all scratched up. It's weird. The steering wheel. Probably from the car was fantastic. Guys, the little things matter.
Yeah.
Number 5, every move, and we're going to share something fun on our screen today if you're watching this live. Every move has its valley of despair. These are 6 lessons we learned from helping 140 families move last year. Well, this is fun. This is called the emotional cycle of change. And yesterday in this marketing intensive I'm in down here in Vegas, we went through this exact cycle. And what happens is when you get ready to move, you start in phase 1, this emotional cycle of change. It's called uninformed optimism. We found a beautiful home. We're going to offer. It's going to have everything we want.
Yeah.
Right, Jesse?
Yep.
Sound right? Time to put ours on the market. Number 2 is informed pessimism. We start to do research. We start to do the actual math. We start looking around the home and everything we need to pack up and repair because we brought a realtor over who decided to, tell us the truth about the state of our home and what's going to have to happen to get the most money. and we go into an informed state of pessimism.
Mm.
And it's like, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. Step 3 is the very bottom of this thing. It's called the Valley of Despair. Do we need to describe it? Not much,
No.
but it is, and this is for anyone in any phase of change in their life, but for buyers and sellers, it's the phase in which we go, maybe this wasn't a good idea. And you know what?
Am I really doing the right thing?
I kind of like, hey, Jesse, I kind of like our 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment for 4 kids. I think we can make it work. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but right? Maybe we don't need to move.
Yep.
Maybe we can learn to adapt to the 4 neighbors that we can't stand.
Oh, yeah.
Step 4 is you come up for air. It's called informed pessimism. Informed optimism. So we went from uninformed optimism, informed pessimism, a valley of despair. Informed optimism. We go, you know what? No, now that we really understand what we're dealing with, I think we can do this in 5 as success. And that's when we put our home on the market. And we've taken the guidance of a really fantastic, real estate guide, and we sell it. And we probably sell it for as much as we need it, or hopefully more. We make a move. Number 6, Jesse, and this is the last comment I'm going to make, is that last one today is preparation's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. How soon should someone start prepping for their move? Say they want to move in 6 months. Is it too early to start?
I start as soon as you start thinking about it. Because the more time you can give yourself to do all those little things, the better it's going to be. What we see most of the time is they've been thinking about it for 3 months. Then they go, oh, well, hey, I want this on the market next week. And they're rushing. And then things get missed, or they don't have time to do what they need to do, or it will pay off in dividends 1,000-fold if you'll slow down and take the time to do all the little things, especially for a seller. And for a buyer, that's true too. Really take the time to talk to a mortgage guy. Make sure that your credit and your situation is at the optimal point to get you the best loan possible. You can't do that overnight.
No, you can't. And I think that often, genuinely, Jesse, I think people are trying to do this last minute. And here's what happens. It's because I'll leave you with a thought today for our listeners. Most of us make a move. What happens is there's a book called Crucial Conversations. And in the book, it talks about how things happen slowly and then suddenly, like a bell curve, right? Yeah. Slowly, it's boiling. And then one day, like, dad steps on a Lego. This would be a move-up buyer, right? And he's like, if I step on bleeping Lego, we got to have a playroom for the kids. Or a lot of our elderly folks, someone falls, or downsizers and empty nesters. Yeah. Someone falls if they're older and they have health problems, and they're like, we can't deal with that again. Or maybe they're kind of in your more of your 50s, early 60s typically, and maybe it's not a health issue, but they wake up one morning and wife says to husband, or vice versa, or maybe this house is really empty.
Yeah, where you need to go.
I can't do this anymore. There is a precipitating factor that causes people to move. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Okay. And so I want you to understand that, right? Something will happen that will be, and it's a moment. And when you tell the story later of your move, you'll say, I remember it was this time of year and this thing happened. Right, Jesse? And Jesse is like, I said to Leah, his wife, right? We can't blank anymore, right? Or whatever it is. If I step on another Lego, or I'm tired of trying to cram the grandkids into wherever.
Yeah.
And what happens is we make a change. And so, I don't think it's too early to start planning, guys. If you were planning to move anytime this year, if you're planning to move in 2026,
that's why it's so also important to bring a real estate agent in sooner than later, because they can help you really do the things that matter. So many times we see people that did all this stuff and they miss the stuff that will move the needle the most.
And Jesse, I'm going to give our future sellers the exact language for working with their realtor. Is everyone ready? Mr. or Mrs. Realtor, thank you for coming into our home. we're planning to move at X time for X reason. It's really important to us to make a smooth transition, which includes getting the most for our house and having the least stress possible. Will you please today tell us the absolute unvarnished truth about what we can do to be prepared for this move, including if our home is ugly or it has problems? Tell us. Guys, that's the language. We're moving to X period place for X reason. It's really important. I need you, please give your real estate agent the permission to be transparent with you, right? Because good grief, transactions can fall apart over the smallest things. Littlest is not a word. Guys, catch us, by the way, over at on YouTube, youtube.com/Go St. George TV. You can learn a lot more about what's going on in the market, or follow us, through Instagram and Facebook. Jesse, thank you.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Larkin, Jesse Paul, Larkin Group, Keller Williams Realty. Have to put that legal disclaimer in there. Looking forward to lots of great moves with all of you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.